Well, just might as well make it a little bit more informal. I have some prepared remarks, but I also could just open it up and allow you guys to ask me questions, whatever you'd like. How much time do you want me to take?
As much time as you need.
As much time as I need. Oh my. Well, let me give you a little bit of background about myself, just in case. Some people know me, other people don't know me as well, but I haven't actually gone through too much of my details. So I'll do a little bit now because in case you haven't heard, I did officially announce I am going to be on the ballot, or at least in the primary, against Louis Frankel, hopefully, but it'll be for District 21. And, well, yeah, we don't know if she's going to run, but I'm pretty sure she will. So we did officially announce, and I'm definitely committed to doing it. I want you people to be a little bit more comfortable with who I am. I want everybody to know more about me. I'm an open book, but I want you to know a little bit more about that book. So I was actually born in England. My father was in the U.S. Air Force for 25 years. He was born in Puerto Rico, in San German, and that's where half of my family's from. He served during Vietnam and subsequently for 25 years, and I was born on Air Force tour. So I was actually born in Bedford, a little bit north of London, at an RAF base called Chicksands. I don't think it's open anymore, but you know, who knows. This was back in the day when it was mainly for spying, Cold War stuff. But he was stationed there, and that's where I was born, and about a year and a half later I went to Spain because my dad got transferred over there. My mom and my dad actually had met in Spain earlier, and that's where they were sort of engaged, and then I forgot where their wedding ceremony was, but anyway, that's not important. My mother's from Argentina. She's born in Buenos Aires, so half my family comes from Argentina and the other half comes from Puerto Rico. And that gives me an interesting background because nobody can pin where my accent is from when I speak Spanish. In Spain, they tell me I'm from Mexico. In Mexico, they tell me I'm from Argentina. From Argentina, they tell me I'm in Spain. I have none of the accents. So anyway, that means I grew up for first 5 years, basically, of my life was in Madrid, in Spain. My dad was stationed at an Air Force base called Raton, and he was there as part of U.S. Air Force liaison to the Franco government. Basically, we sold F-18s and other equipment. Spain was in NATO at the time. They wanted to do surveillance stuff. This was back when NATO was doing things. No, I'm just kidding. They still do stuff, but this was actually the height of the Cold War stuff. And in that time, I remember a little bit, but I remember some of the peculiarities of being in a country with that type of authoritarian government. You couldn't go out at certain times at night. You couldn't sell land to a non-Spanish citizen. If you did this, it had to go through some things. You couldn't do certain stuff when you were traveling, so it was peculiar. It didn't affect us too much, but it was there. It was always omnipresent, and I was young, so I imagine if I was older, I would have seen more. But after that, we moved to the U.S. I officially entered the country through New Jersey, and then we moved to Florida shortly thereafter. My dad retired at McGuire Air Force Base in Jersey, and then I came down to Florida. And that's where I went to all my schooling. So really, when people ask me where I'm from, it's here. I went to Omni Middle School in Boca. I went to Atlantic High School in Delray Beach, the old one that got bulldozed, not the new one. I got to be with a bunch of portables, not with the nice new building. And then I went to the University of Florida for college. So that's where I went to school. I studied nuclear engineering, and then I went to work in the power industry. And then we came back here with my wife Rachel, moved to Boynton Beach, and that's where we live now. And we've loved it so far. I've been there about 2 years, closer to family finally. So all of that is just for you to be a little bit more familiar with me. I'm not meaning to bore you, but I want you to know a little bit about me. But also there's one point there. My mother was born in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. And I've been to Buenos Aires before when I was young. And I remember running around outside in the city and having fun and playing and going by a lot. And on that lot were 800 cars that all looked exactly the same, the little white generic model. Why? Military dictatorship. And I remember living in Spain and being there when Franco was in charge. And there were all kinds of peculiarities about where you could go and what you could do and who you could sell things to and what you could say and what you couldn't say. Why? Military dictatorship. When I say I love America, it's not based on what I was taught in school, because God knows what they teach in school now. Yeah. And it's not even based on what my parents told me, even though they always told me to love the country. It's actually just based on what I've seen. And my perspective is not anywhere near the same as someone who's left like Venezuela or Cuba or the Soviet Union. But I have my small bit of perspective, and that's enough for me to understand that this country is about individual liberty, and other places on earth are not, haven't always been, etc. Lump it all into the same boat. This is the gold standard when it comes to individual liberty. Other people will tell you, oh, there's other democracies on earth. True. There's other places where you have freedom. True. All these things are a spectrum. But there's nobody to the broad side of the United States when it comes to maximizing individual liberty. And that's what this country's about. And that's why I love this country. It doesn't come from anything anybody's inculcated in me. It's come naturally. Although I've always liked to see my father and the pride he has on his face when he's wearing his uniform. But he's never forced me to think anyway. And that's why I love this country, and that's also why I want to run. One of the things that I want to bring forth, and that I want everybody to understand, and you guys already understand it because you're here in this room for the same reason. Individual liberty is what drives everything. Everything in history that has been considered an expansion of the ability of human beings is individual liberty. And we've got one that we're talking about now, and we'll get to it. But, and actually, I'll just go ahead and go to it. Industrial Revolution, more people being involved. Internet revolution, right? More people being involved. The founding of this country, more people being involved. Every time you have individual liberty, you have the betterment of society. So, I already alluded to it. We have our lovely friends from the left talking about socialism now, right? It's a new branding of the same old thing. Funny, you never see any of the people who came from Cuba or Venezuela clamoring for this. I wonder why. You know, we laugh, but what about the people who came over from Poland fleeing the Soviet Union too, right? It's funny, but it's not. So you never see them clamoring for it because they know what it's like. This is the same old thing. And I brought up the examples from my background, but those were right-wing military dictatorships. BS, I don't care about that fake spectrum. There's only one spectrum that matters. Individual liberty, centralized power. It's the only spectrum that matters. And every government on earth that has to do with one or few people ruling is, as far as I'm concerned, a leftist government. Period. They can make up other things. They can say, oh, racial this and national. They can come up with any spectrum they want. None of it matters. The only spectrum that matters is, do you have the power or does somebody up there have the power? And that's what they want to dodge because that's where they get unpopular. Do you notice their poll numbers for socialism as it keeps going down? Because people learn a little bit more about what it means. So we need to keep maximizing individual liberty. That's what our country's about. And that's what every single thing that's happened in human history has been showing us is positive. And we have a winning opportunity here because they're talking about socialism, this Medicaid expansion, all this other stuff. What they actually want to do is just be more powerful in government. Leftists have never met a situation that they couldn't turn into a request for more personal power, right? You notice that? But they never solved the problem? It's because if they solved the problem, they couldn't turn around and ask it the next day for more power. That's the way they do it. But we have a really big opportunity because people don't inherently like that. We have something in common with that crazy commune living hippie. We do. We all yearn to be free. They have a different idea of what freedom will end up being. They think it's going to be something on the other side of a hill, but they have the same freedom. To me, it's something that's innate to people. It's part of who we are. The problem is they don't understand that the path they're going down is just going to make somebody on top really rich and them not. But we understand which way we have to go. And that's part of what this entire government is about. That's part of what this entire election's about. We all know that one of the reasons they hate Trump so much is because he's actually taking power away, not from left or right, but from people who have held it for a long time, right? We call it deep state. We have a million names for it, some of them not so flattering, some of our guys. But the bottom line is it's the same thing. That's always what politics is really about. It's the fight between people wanting to have power in mass or specific individuals wanting to have power. And at different times in history, maybe it's leaned to this side, so it's just 2 or 3 individuals fight each other for power. Okay, we haven't always been enlightened in our history, but it's always the same fight. We have an opportunity now, though, to really deal a blow to the people who want to centralize power because now they're talking about all these crazy ideas that are not popular. And we need to be able to win this election, not just win. I'm confident that Donald Trump will get reelected. I really am. But I don't want to just win. I want to knock him out. I want to win personally my race. I need support for that. Don't get me wrong. But beyond me, I want to win as many House seats, as many Senate seats, as many state seats of every type as possible. Because we need to knock them out. And I don't mean that in a violent sense. They'll quote that in a newspaper or whatever. But what I do mean is we need to make sure that the people who are agitating and trying to make leftism and really centralized government, we need to make sure they don't get to speak as much anymore. Because as much as we may not like to admit it, we have to at least throw a bone to our Democratic opponents They weren't quite as nuts 20 years ago. They've always been nuts. But I remember as a younger lad, even when I couldn't vote, but I remember the Elder Bush election. I remember Bill Clinton. I didn't hear between a party that loved a country and the party that hated the country. That wasn't what was going on. And a lot of registered Democrats today think the same way, and many of them voted for Trump. We need to not lose that opportunity because we can gain from that. Because they need to understand that their party left them behind. And we have a chance to really show that to them. So that's really what we're going to try and do. That's what I'm going to try and do. Not so much in ideological terms because people don't think that way, but I'm going to talk to them about values. Everybody loves a strong economy, especially someone who just came here for a job from a country where they don't have opportunity, right? Supposedly people who won't vote for us? They come here for a job, right? Tell me how many jobs democratic policies have ever created in this country. They're probably still in the hole. Right? The bottom line is we have an appeal to everybody. We just have to use it. Marketing's tough, imaging's tough. You know, we're not always the best at showing stuff off. I need to learn how to act better on a camera. I need to learn how to communicate with people better. We all have stuff we can do better, but the point is we've got options and we've got ammunition. And the one thing that Mel mentioned that's really important, because I want to make sure that I'm always constantly doing this because it's true, I want to thank all the people who volunteer. We have a lot of people who are willing to volunteer in Palm Beach County. When people think about Palm Beach, they say, oh, you know, we don't win as much, it's not as strong. We have a lot of people who are willing to volunteer, and that's what matters. We have access to all the tools to win. Doesn't mean it's easy to put them together, but we can win. It's just a matter of do we want it. I want it, and I know there's a lot of people who are supporting me who want it. We just got to keep working at it. And I think we're going to be able to get there. Because again, the fundamental message that the other side is pushing doesn't survive the light of day. Nobody likes what they're pushing. Nobody likes Medicare for all when you explain to them, well, actually, your current plan is a private plan that's got some negotiated payment, and it'll disappear, and they promise you what'll replace it will be the same, don't worry. Nobody likes that explanation, for good reason. Nobody likes the idea of, yeah, we're going to save the environment, $190 trillion debt at a time. Oh, okay. That seems like a big number, right? Their ideas don't survive the light of day. We just need to make sure that we do a good job of explaining why. So that's what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to try and approach every single topic I can with some sort of reason and logic. I'm an ideological person, but not that much. I am in the sense that I don't believe there should be any budge on the Constitution. I don't think there's any problem with the way our government operates as far as the core rights that we have and we need to protect. On other issues, I'm willing to discuss and see what they have to say. But the bottom line is we can approach it from a values perspective, and we're going to win 7 out of 10 times. So that's what we're going to try to do. And that's what I hope is going to be able to push us over the finish line. We'll see what happens. But anybody who's willing to help, to support, to volunteer, I'll need it. You have a question?
Yeah, a question. My concern about all of you, of course, it's name recognition, but how do you get through to the colleges? Can you get on the college campuses and speak, get name recognitions from the millennials who really know nothing?
Well, it's tough.
How are you going to do this? That's the most important.
The name recognition, well, name recognition in general is a problem, right? But for millennials, it depends on a couple of things. When I've taught, I teach a couple courses at Palm Beach State College, and the people I teach, they're not, most of them are not immediate college age, as in they went to high school and they're immediately going to college. They're a few years older, although there are some who are right on that track. And they're usually pretty reasonable. They have slightly different things they're interested in, but they're interested in getting a job. They want to be able to have a future. They want to be able to go and say, how do I apply my skill to a better and better and better position? They ask me questions about how do I interview. This is all human stuff we can communicate with, right? And the point is, we're the party that wants to have more vocational education. We're the party that wants to have more charter schools. We're the party that wants to have more 2-year programs. That's something I'm big with because I'm working in it right now. I see that we don't treat things the same way. We are the party that creates jobs. That is an inherently good message. Can we make it pretty? Well, we can try. But we can also combine it with other things. Millennials are very focused on the environment. And you've seen this, and you know it's true because the Democrats are hammering it. They wouldn't hammer it if it wasn't true. Incidentally, as a joke, the easiest way to get Democrats to close the border is for us to win 55% of the migrant vote. Right?
Yeah.
The Democrats are pretty smart at hammering things that win votes. They're on the environment because it wins votes. I personally don't believe that we have to be a party that has no environmental solution.
Right.
I think our goal has to be we have the smart environmental solution. There's not a human in this room that doesn't like the environment. There's certainly not a Floridian that doesn't love the environment. And one thing I always like to say is, you tell me who loves the environment more than a coal miner who lives in the hills of West Virginia. You tell me. Somebody who probably doesn't have a neighbor for 5 miles. You tell me who loves the environment more than them. The point is, we're all in the same boat on this. It's just a matter of, do we get to the logical conclusion in 5, 6, 7 steps, or do we try and go there in one step, fall off a cliff, and end up with $90 billion in debt? Trillion, sorry, don't let me understate the stupidity. So the bottom line is, we have a message that we can craft. We haven't actually crafted it too much in the past, but I think we can do it. And that's something I'm going to try. That is my background. I worked in the energy industry. I am an engineer that knows how you produce electricity. And I can even tell you math-wise why their plans are insane. They've got more windmills quoted for offshore construction than we have shoreline miles. Like, you can't fit them all. But anyway, the bottom line is, we can appeal. I don't know if it'll work, but a combination of strong economy, good educational opportunity, and some sort of environmental message, I think can appeal to millennials. We'll see if it works, but we're going to give it a shot. Ruth.
Christian, I like everything I've ever heard you say, and I like you.
I'm sure I've screwed up.
Well, you know, it's true just from my perspective, and I like you a lot as a person. So I'm going to be telling other people about you, and that's part of why you're on camera right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. One question that a lot of people like to ask is about experience. Sure. You have great ideals. What's your experience as either being a manager or being involved in the community, different groups?
Well, I can tell you, I have proud, let me rephrase this. I am proud to say I have 0 experience years of being a failed politician.
Good.
I think that's important.
Whoa, that's a good start.
I will not use my, I'm going to see if I can do this right without butchering it. I will not use my opponent's age and I will not use my opponent's age and lack of accomplishments for personal gain.
Or intelligence.
I won't say that. No, I worked 8 years as an engineer in the energy industry, and what I liked to do most was go to power plants. So I actually wasn't really a desk engineer; I was a field engineer. I show pictures to my students of me in like that Homer Simpson yellow outfit in a power plant. It's actually a real dangerous environment. Doing work, doing welding, all kinds of stuff, working with engineering, with management, and with craft labor. Some of the best guys I met were all union laborers, got great work done. That type of experience really taught me a lot about how to get things done, and this was for 8 years. We did a whole lot of things. Afterwards, I went and worked in the railroad sector, in railroad signaling, which is basically traffic lights you see on the side of the road for trains. It's more complicated than that. But all of the railroad safety issues you hear about, that's the type of stuff I worked with, and I was a project manager there. I was a project engineer, which is their engineering version. And I would be in charge of running the project, coming up with the schedule, and basically getting it done. One of the things we did was repair all of the equipment inside the Montague Tunnel in New York after it was destroyed by Hurricane Sandy. Montague connects basically Battery Park to Brooklyn. So that tunnel was flooded and we had to repair all that stuff. So I basically come with team building, getting things done, contract work type of experience from an industry. So it's not political, but I do know how to get things done. I have actually worked and done actual business multiple months in both Mexico and Veracruz and in Spain and Santander. They'd send me because they didn't have that many employees who spoke Spanish. But talk about a multicultural environment. The job I did in Spain was an American company working with a Spanish fabricator for a Swedish customer. There's 0 communication, okay? The level of planning between the Swedes and the Spanish is no light of day there. They're completely different. But that means I have to work on bringing people together and actually getting the job done, which is a good thing, because then I can say that I'm sure my opponent works at bringing together people, but since she doesn't have to ever deliver anything, no project gets delivered. I had to deliver stuff where we kind of got fired, so that does matter. But, jokes aside, I do know how to work in groups with many different backgrounds. I know how to bring technical expertise along with actual craft labor, getting things done in the field. I know how to work with public utilities. We always had to work with either a public utility or a railroad. I know about energy, I know about infrastructure, and that's from having actually built stuff. So it's a pretty good background. When they tell you about positive train control, I can actually tell you what it is. When they talk about we're going to build this, that, and the other windmill and use this underground ridiculous energy storage system, I can tell you why it's garbage. Like, these are the things that I can actually do, and it just so happens that they're important issues for us, right? Whenever we talk about environment, we're really talking about two things, transportation and electricity. Well, that's my background, so I think we can make some good work out of it. And at the very least, people will know that when I'm giving them information, it's information based on my experience, and I'm just telling them the truth that I know and that I've worked on, and not that I got from some aide who prepped it 20 minutes before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mary.
The district which I happen to live in is very heavily Democrat. Many of them side with Lois based on just environmental issues alone, global warming, and all that stuff. And you are far more of an expert on that than Lois is.
I
But
think so.
tell us what your message is going to be to these crazy people. How are you going to change their minds?
Well, some of them I won't be able to change their minds. But the people who are more honestly just looking for a better future, they have an idea of the direction they want to go, and they think that we're not going in that direction, what I'd like to tell them first is that they should stop and give themselves credit and give all of us credit. The truth is that if you look at the amount of pollution, even with carbon footprint, which some of you may not agree with the idea of a carbon footprint, regardless, if you look at the carbon footprint of every person, we've reduced our carbon footprint by like 20% over the last decade, individually. That's the truth. Lois Frankel didn't do that. AOC didn't do that. Carbon taxes didn't do that. Government didn't do that. Paris Accord didn't do that. Chinese government never did that, right?
Yeah.
None of them did that. The point is, again, who actually does all the work? The citizens. Who does all the moving? Us. Individual liberty, the whole theme again. We're the ones who got it done. The truth is we've made a lot of progress. That doesn't mean where we have gotten where we want to go. But the first thing you have to do is understand any benefit that they claim is because of the work we've done on becoming more efficient, on choosing greener options, on having just more consciousness about how much electricity we use. So if you want to get there and then multiply it, shouldn't you understand how you got there first? Because if you ask any of these politicians who claim they know something, they won't be able to tell you how we got here. All they'll say is, let's tax something. Oh, good. Fantastic. By the way, if you want to talk about redistribution and fair share, making electricity prices go up hits poor and middle income people hardest. You may make 1,000,000 times less than someone very wealthy, but they don't use 1,000,000 times more electricity than you, right? They use like 3 or 4 times more. So the point here is, we still have a good message. We just need to explain it, and we have to give a plan. We have to give a realistic plan on where we're going to go. We can't say, well, we're doing fine, the market will solve it. We all know that probably the market will solve it, but we can't say that because it doesn't speak to them. What we can say is, this is the direction we want to go, and here is the two or three key things that we need to either develop, work on, research. I'll be talking about research a little bit. Or here's a couple directions that we can maybe have a small subsidy in something. I know we don't like doing that, but for example, that's worth considering. The option is either present no plan and lose, or present a good plan that's literally 1,000,000 times cheaper than the Democrats' plan and maybe win. And that's probably the goal that we need to go and look towards. Because there are things we can do environmentally that are important, right? I can give you a bunch of different topics and we'll talk about them, but one thing that I'll also discuss a little bit later is, think about how much carbon got emitted by burning an entire forest in California. Anybody ever thought about that? Shouldn't that count against California's, like they always say they're the greenest? Shouldn't they get like a giant negative for just lighting a forest on fire? Oh, it's not our fault. Yeah, 20 years you haven't solved the problem. You still have above ground power lines in a heavily forested, wealthy area. Hello. We can put lines in a cable and put it on ground. We've done this forever. We put it under the sea 100 years ago, right? Not so hard. And they pay tons of taxes, and these are typically wealthy communities. I don't want to pick on them, but they have the ability to pay for this. Why are there still above ground power lines going to these wealthy forested communities 20 years later? Anytime a California political officer tells you how much the environment they're saving, make sure that they take negative credit for the amount of pollution they emit from their forest fires, and they will immediately look like fools. But the point is, we can solve that problem. That's not a problem we can't solve. I'll go out there and solve it for you in 6 months if I had enough people and a little bit of money. I physically know how to do it, right? It's not that hard. So the point is, it can be done. Instead, the preferred solution is veto a bill, do nothing, have PG&E go bankrupt, a bunch of people lose money, and everything's the same. That's the truth. I haven't said anything that's a lie. That's the point. We can appeal to them. But it will be difficult, and I can't guarantee it'll work, but I can guarantee I'm going to give it a damn good try. You were...
Yes. You sound like a great candidate. And
I hope so.
You should win hands down against Lois Frankel. But Lois Frankel
She's
is a
tough.
dirty player, and there's a lot of corruption here in southern Florida. What I want to know is specifically, what can we do to support you to make sure you win?
Okay. Well, initially, and I got to learn how to be a candidate, so initially I do need money. I need donations. I will let you know on my website. It's actually really easy. It's voteacosta.com. So any donations are helpful, even if it's $10, $20, an $18 good luck donation. I'll take everything, especially now because early money helps me as far as being ready for the summer months. In the summer months, starting in June, I'm going to put out information to ask people for volunteers. I'm going to be walking door to door to as many neighborhoods as I can. We intend to qualify by petitions. But I don't need to be the only one who's doing this. I can also have people asking for getting petitions outside of libraries, at small group events, at sitting in the mall if you're comfortable doing that, or walking door to door. I intend to speak either directly or by proxy to as many people in this district as possible. A congressional district is about 800,000 people. It's less than 600,000 voters. It is not so big that we can't realistically have some direct contact with the majority of the population. And that is more important than any stupid article on CNN. That's the truth, and it's always been the truth. So that's going to be the intention. So volunteering is going to be a big deal. Word of mouth, just simply talking to people. If everybody sets a personal goal of talking to one person they know is in the district and just trying to secure their vote, every week, one person, that'll help. It all adds up, because at the end of the day, the margin might actually end up being very small. And if it's very small, then we can win. We just have to flip a few votes. Every vote we flip from Democrat is +2, basically. And that's what we're going to be doing a lot of. It's not as hard as it seems, especially now that they have forgotten the evils of not denouncing anti-Semitism, especially now that they have shown their hand on how bad their economic policies are, especially now that they've shown how much they actually don't care about immigrants. They give up every opportunity to do deals for DACA, for example. Regardless of your opinions on this, I was real chapped when we had the government shutdown, and the president finally said, okay, give me $5 billion and we'll talk about doing something with DACA. I thought that was a decent compromise. I understand if some of you don't. Personally, I thought that was a decent compromise. Let's get somewhere. Crickets. Not $1 is all you heard from Nancy Pelosi. They don't really care about immigrants. They don't care about anybody but their own vote totals. We can use that. So one person at a time, donations, volunteer support, all of the above. But if we don't, we're going to saturate the district with communication, direct communication and mail outs, and we're going to see how many hearts we can change.
Thank you.
You had a question, sir?
I was wondering if you have some kind of plan to overcome the biased media who thinks that every Republican or conservative is the worst person who ever walked the earth.
Well, long story short, no. But I don't think it's necessary. Here's the thing. The institutional media in Palm Beach County is really only the Post, as far as large circulation. Everything else is either a smaller circulation or friendly to us. We can have good media coverage, and it won't be as important as direct social media interaction and direct interaction and door-to-door. And that's really what we're going to try and do. And if by chance I happen to catch people's eye and I'm on national news, in my mind that can only be in my favor, right? All I have is my voice and my message and the people supporting me. The more people that hear it, we'll see if it works. So I don't think that's a problem I have to overcome too much. Bigger names, more national races, and the president, yes. So we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I got to go with a plan.
If you could communicate to voters one difference in 30 seconds, here's where I stand, here's where Lois stands, that could turn the swing voters you need, what is that 30-second, here's where I stand, here's where she stands?
All right. I can give you three
No,
particular
one.
things. Well,
One.
I'll do it in 30 seconds.
If you give people three, they don't remember anything. If
Well, I
you
would
give
target
people
it to
one
each
thing,
person.
they will remember. But
But
if
I'll-
you've got a message that everybody hears, very few candidates can do that. And I'm curious if you to pick the most important thing that you want everybody to know in 30 seconds and a difference, what would it be? And then you can go on and talk about the other ones, but I want to know what the one is, because most voters will only hear one thing.
If I have to pick one single thing,
Yeah.
it would be this. You are electing someone to represent you. Please tell me 2 things Louis Frankel has done as a congresswoman in the last 6 years. And then tell me how that reflects upon you as a person.
Okay, and what are the other two?
Not you as a person, I would rephrase that, sorry. I would say, then tell me if that represents you.
Okay, so she's a do-nothing. And what are your other 2 things?
Well, the 3 targeted things I would say is, if you care about Medicaid, right, medical insurance, this is very important. She supports she basically is a rubber stamp. She will support every big name topic, and she's already thrown support behind Medicare for All. Medicare for All, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say Medicaid. Medicare for All is not Medicare for All. It is a destruction of the plan you've already paid into, and the presumptive replacement of it with something we promise you will be the same. But there's no guarantee that your doctor will be there. You've seen those promises before. There's no guarantee the same networks will show up. There's no guarantee the same benefits will be there. Why do you want to take something you've paid into all your life that is really owed to you at this point? We can argue about whether things should be the way they are, but that person paid into it. That person now has earned it. Why do you want it to be changed just because someone said they've got a magical plan? We heard that 8 years ago. It didn't work out, right? That's the truth. They're trying to take away your Medicare. They're not giving you more or giving it to other people. They're taking away your Medicare, and then they'll give you something they claim will be as good. Are you willing to take that risk? That's one message to a very clear audience. Another message is, excuse me.
She's a do-nothing, Medicare,
Well, no,
and...
the other message was just on the economy in general. She supports all of the efforts to remove the tax cuts. She supports all of the efforts to basically raise taxes in any way possible, but specifically those tax cuts. And I use this quote on my website, and I'll keep using it because they can't come back at me with it. The New York Times said that 68% of American families received or paid less taxes this year than they did last year as a result of those tax cuts. It's not negotiable. So why does Louis Frankel want to undo that? You tell me. Do you want to pay more in taxes? I don't see why most people would. You know, if they particularly paid more under the plan, then okay, I guess my argument didn't work. But for most people, it'll work. And it's not, you want to go argue with the New York Times, have at it. But the bottom line is, she wants to get rid of the tax cuts. And I don't know what she's going to spend the money on. She hasn't claimed she'll tell you. But I guarantee you it's not going to help you get where you want to go or go on that family vacation. So that's pretty much the other type of argument I would use. And there's some other ones. But.
Okay.
Now,
Are you now, or do you plan to start campaigning soon in Spanish language groups to try to build the affinity, number one, which I'm sure Frankel does not have, with Spanish-speaking groups, and you could easily develop. And number two, to try to get them to consider converting to Republican, because you need those Republican votes in the primary.
both. Well, yes to everything you said.
Okay.
I am currently working with people, different groups, different small groups, and there is a statewide group that I'm going to be talking to as well. There is a number of Republican groups that are looking to increase their share of the Hispanic vote. This is very, very important, and it's important to me personally. I don't generally like to make things with identity politics. I don't play that way, but it is important for us to understand that people who come here from Hispanic countries typically share a lot of values with us. I always give this one particular indicator, and I mentioned it with you before. The average Hispanic immigrant is going to be more religious than the average American citizen. Okay? Take that however you will, but the point is, we can absolutely talk to people. We just have to understand how to talk to people. So we're definitely going to do it. I'm just going to use a simple message of empowerment and education and just tell them my story, tell them my grandfather's story. And I'll do it in Spanish if I can. I have to get a little bit better because some of the technical words I screw up, but whatever. My Spanish is better than Louis Frankel's, so I'll be good. And we're definitely going to do that. I'm going to go everywhere I can and get as many votes. Because you'll find most people are not really all that ideological, and they're willing to vote for a message, an image, someone they think really cares about them. And that's the truth, because I will actually care about them. And we're gonna definitely do as much outreach as we can.
But you have to get that registration transferred to the Republicans.
We're gonna
If you
try and
can,
do that
so
as
they'll
well.
vote for you.
I'm not going to do that directly myself when I'm speaking to people, because I have
Right.
another agenda, I apologize. But I am working with people who are going to go out and do registration drives, because a lot of people in predominantly Hispanic communities are not registered. There's also some who can't register for other
Right.
reasons, as we know, but we're gonna do what we can, because we have to go in there and try. And you'll find that a lot of them actually have never had anybody come and talk to them. They're being taken for granted, just like the Democrats take a lot of identity groups for granted. But we shouldn't just give that up. So it's a very good point, and we're gonna try and work on that. The registration for the district is anywhere from 12 to 20% Hispanic, depending on the demographics you look at. Registered voters, mind you. So it's definitely a big deal. Yes,
How large a block is the 18 to 28-year-olds? And, you know, I know you've seen some of these Waters Man on the Street interviews. They don't have a clue about anything except drugs, their smartphone, and maybe a vapor cigarette.
Yeah,
They don't know who the vice president is. They don't have any social awareness. How do you get to them?
I don't know the answer to exactly the size of the voting. I have the demographics, but I don't know that off the top of my head. I'd have to go look for it. But all I would say to you is this, and it's a little bit not negative, but it is the truth. If they're a blank slate, then that means we have an opportunity, right? Democrats prey on that. Part of what I was talking about with the background I had as far as being in different countries and seeing different things, it's perspective, right? Part of the reason the Democrats do so well with young voters and do so well with indoctrinating young voters in schools is because young voters don't have their own perspective with which to push back. They don't have that tiny little thing in the back of their head saying, you know, this doesn't make sense because this happened the other day to me and it was the opposite, right? They don't have that. So that's why they typically end up leaning left, but we can work on that. We can at least try and communicate. As we were talking about, one of the things we can try and make inroads in is with environmental ideas that will actually show results. Maybe that'll work, but we have to try.
So the point with me is, voter registration is so easy. It's almost forced on people to do it. When I, a few decades ago, registered to vote as a 21-year-old, I had to read a paragraph from the Constitution and tell the town clerk what it meant.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the town clerk doesn't know what the Constitution is anymore.
Yeah.
Good. We need them. You're right, but there's not much I can do about the ease of registration. You're automatically registered almost when you go to the DMV.
Motor voter laws.
Yeah. Ruth.
Christian, so far you've been talking about Lois Frankel. We all want you to oust Lois Frankel. How are you going to interact with the other 4 candidates who are running with you against Lois?
To be honest.
Yes,
and I
please
don't
be
mean
honest.
this- I don't mean this in any diminutive way. I'm running against Lois Frankel. I'm not going to speak about other candidates. I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to prepare my campaign from day one to be in the general election. And then I'm going to hope that I've convinced enough people that I'm the one they want representing them, that the primary won't be a concern. I have no interest in getting into primary fights with people. It doesn't ever help.
Okay.
So I don't think it's going to be a big problem. But we'll see. But my message is always going to be the same. Here's what I'm going to do better than Lois Frankel, period. What do you think about this other primary component or contestant? Here's what I have to say about Lois Frankel. It's going to be like that.
Okay.